Hello, this is Harry Paden. I am the host of Paden's Pulpit. This is Season 1, Episode 29. Today's subject, Amazons of the Dahomey. Amazons of the Dahomey. Okay, many of you know that Viola Davis has a movie out currently entitled Woman King. Get into that in a few minutes. I'll start off by saying something that most of us know, especially those who like history. History is always, not sometimes, not most of the time, history is always told from the point of view of the victors. Those who win the war, defeat a country, will determine what that history is, who's greater in battle, and stuff like that. Some people try to stick to the letter of the law, but certainly it can be turned to one side to another. America is definitely guilty of that. Colonized history leaves out whole chunks of information narrating a version of the past that is out of context. Oh, the Indians were savages. We came here and taught them how to live, and that kind of stuff. The history of the colonized, those who are colonized, like Black Americans, has been erased in this manner, leaving their future generations with little or no idea about their ancestors or their culture. Again, our race is definitely falling victim to that. Nowadays, thank goodness, a little bit more of that history is being revealed. Much of Africa had been colonized, and the history of that land had been lost as it slipped into the hands of European colonizers who documented the events. Among the innumerable histories that have been lost is that of the Amazons of the Dahomey. The only documented, there may have been more, but no one has documentation of it. The only documented female army in modern history. That's white, black, From the notes of the explorers and colonizers, the little that is known of the army is that they were a group of dedicated service. They were a group dedicated to the service of the king. They were known to use brute force. They were rough. They just overpowered people. Brute force to tackle their enemies and easily could remove a man's head with a curved blade or scale a wall of thorns. Their humanity has been erased, and the sparse remaining survivors of the Amazon are the only source of information currently available to learn about them. Unlike the letter-writing Europeans, West Africans, which is where the Dahomey were from, West Africans preferred the oral tradition of passing down stories from generation to generation. This probably is why not much has been documented about the Amazons after the war. These stories are dying with people. And also remember, the colonizers spread people, the slaves out, and the stories did not get passed on because life became the story. But as people were dying out, then there was no one to pass that story on. Much like in today's society, many people, they just live life and they don't write down what happened yesterday. And in the future, no one's going to know what happened yesterday because no one records it. we don't learn from the past, and we're destined to repeat. How foolish can you be not to write down what happened in the past? But there are some modern day people, leaders, who don't do that. The Amazons were very powerful. They had influence. But everyone stopped talking about them after the colonial conquest. Again, you kind of forget stuff. Again, that's what I'm talking about. Who was the leader? Who built this building? Who put this in place? No one even today. The French, a major colonizing country, immediately upon taking over, disbanded the all-women army. They opened up their own, the French, they opened up their own schools with a curriculum that made no mention of the Amazons. Much of the current generation barely knows anything about their ancestors. That sounds familiar. Like, what culture is allowing that to happen? They go to the other people's school where they don't give them their history, so they don't know. Where does that sound familiar to me? Maybe I'm missing something. This is why I was overwhelmed to tears as earlier today I went and viewed Hollywood's depiction of these awesome female African warriors in a movie starring award-winning actress Viola Davis. It's called Woman King. The Woman King is actually a story that has as the backdrop the Amazons of the Dahomey, the female warriors of the Dahomey. Let's be clear. This movie is a fictionalized story, but it's about real people. Hollywood, for many years, an institution made up of good old boys who just happen to be white, just like the early colonizers wrote their stories from a Eurocentric point of view. The difference with the current movie about the Amazon warriors is that it was written by accomplished, she has accomplishments, I mispronounced it, director-writer Gina Prince by the Woods. That's her actual last name, Gina Prince by the Woods. And for the record, so you get her track history, she also was writer and director of Love and Basketball and The Secret Life of Bees. She is, and you say, what is her race? Well, first of all, she's a female. But for the record, she was adopted at the age of 6 weeks by a Chicago couple, a mom who is from Salvador, and her father who is Irish. She is the biological child of a white mother and black father. So what, in terms of what is her race, she is mixed white and black. But she was raised by a couple who has, European type background. Means nothing, but that's just history. Again, Woman King is fictional. It's made up. The story's made up. The actual Amazons of the Dahomey, though, they're not made up. And neither is their king that's portrayed in the movie, King Ghezo. Might mispronounce it, Ghezo. He is, even in the movie, he is a real figure. Some of the characters, I won't tell you what, because, you haven't seen the movie. I don't want to, some of them are fictional, but the story is real. Most of the stories not based on actual characters because the true stories were never told, never passed down. So no one can tell, again, this happened. This was the mighty warrior's name. This was the second in command. This was the third in command. But the movie gives you lines of demarcations. There were leaders. There were soldiers. There were soldiers in training. There were enemies. Most of that stuff is part of the storyline. Because I do a lot of history, I know the difference. But again, I won't divulge it. But as I mentioned, no one knows the true history, so the story couldn't be told truthfully because no one knows it. And just like in this generation, the people who knew the stories have died out. I myself let relatives pass on before I start digging into my DNA. Regretted to this day, hey, what was this? What was that? And, you know, we used to think, that's old people talk. Nobody want to hear that. How dumb were we not to get the wealth of information? I am an elder in the village. I got so much knowledge. I give it to my children, but hardly anybody else seeks me for it. I don't volunteer it. I get my podcast, but I know so much. I know how certain politicians got into office, how things would change from white to black in certain cities, how boards of educations, buildings were named. I just know things. But again, thanks to the accomplished author, that's me, Harry Paden, a factual version of the Amazons of the Dahomey story will be available for those who want to know. It's in my upcoming book, set to go to the publishers on Tuesday, very shortly. It is finished, proofreading and a lot of the different fine tuning, but the book itself is finished. But I cover the actual facts that are known about the Amazons of the Dahomey. You can find out about it if you desire by buying my book. I'll let you know when it comes out. You don't have to, it's available. I did research, and that means you would have to do research. But even though this movie is fictional, Woman King, the movie was exciting. It was action-filled, and it moved me to tears. The cast is 99% African American, excuse me. The cast is 99%, well, let me put it this way, the cast is 99% black. Get this, and the reason I say that is this. Many in the cast are actually Africans. If, actors can portray accents and things like that. But these actors, when you go to the end, I always stay to the end credits until they're almost putting me out the theater to see what's going on and look at little things. Because again, I've done programming, so I know those little things are the fine things. But if you look at the names, they're African names. Wow. It's so beautiful from whence we came, from whence people who were portrayed as black were painted dark, or you know what I mean, they were made darker to look black. Very few, or Africans were depicted as with little bones through their nose and couldn't talk. Kimosabe, and that was the Indian, but you know how it is. Some of you older, if you don't, they portrayed us terribly. You need to see this movie. You need to see this movie with your children. I don't care how old they are. Your neighbor's children, or just children you don't know. Just buy some tickets for some children you don't know. Especially children of color. See, I include children of all color. White children need to see this movie. It's not just a black movie. This is an informational movie about a factual subject done fictionally. The characters are fiction. The story of the Dahomey, the Amazons, are true. Now, in one part, one of the warriors, female warriors, she's an experienced female warrior in charge of training those who are trying to get into the warriorship. Her name is Izoji. She said to warrior in training, Nawi, Here's what she said, and it was so profound. She was talking to her, and she said, "You have power. Don't ever give up your power." She said, "You have power. Don't ever give up your power." That's the message that I gave to my daughters in regards to men. You got power. Don't give up your power. Don't let no man live in your home rent-free, contribution-free. Don't let a man into, I mean to be graphic, into your body for nothing. You have power. The hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. God had made me a woman, I'd be a come to me with none of that nonsense. You did what? You did who? You don't work? What? Oh, you didn't mean to? Boy. But at least I had the opportunity to raise 4 powerful daughters. And they're raising their daughters and, sons too. So the power has been passed on. You have power. Don't give up your power. Whew. See the movie. It is a good representation. Again, it's a story. It's not based on true facts, except for the king. The king was true. He was actually the king. And the colonizers, of course, they came in and they talk about, the slave trade and how the Africans sold their prisoners and white people used, y'all sold yourselves. So did y'all. Y'all did the same thing. And y'all sold my people. For that, you should never be forgiven. God asked me to forgive you. Anyway, when you know the truth shall set you free. The Amazons of the Dahomey were some bad sisters. Oh, sorry about that. They were bad. Better than John Shaft, better than Claude Van Damme and all of them. Them women took down armies. They fought better than the men population. Go see the movie. My book comes out. If you want some factual information, the very little factual information that's available, please get it in my book. And this is so uncouth. It happens. Again, to God be the glory. Woman King, highly recommended. Again, at the end, I was crying. I was crying because it was a movie about my people, by my people. Oh, we have overcome. Sometimes we just don't know it. To God be the glory.